rice vinegar and chili sauce. Let's go home now. Is it what? No, I don't think so. No, you just divide the rice between 4 bowls. So it's obviously rice based when you put all the other bits and pieces on top. But it's not a broth, it's not weight. Weight, it probably could be when you cook it, I should imagine. You could ever follow a recipe if your life depends. Do you have cookbooks at home? Do you? Oh, you got the Tom Kerridge one? It's a good one, I regret it. He came in, he actually recorded Tom Kerridge with me. And I said to him, don't talk to the celebrity anymore, it's unnecessary. He said, Sal, you started having a conversation with Tom Kerridge. You could see how frightened Tom Kerridge looked. And I remember thinking, I need to separate this as quick as possible. And then they were talking about food and all this kind of things. I said, I had to apologise. I said, I'm so sorry, Tom. I'm sorry, it won't happen ever again. You know, I said to him, do not touch the celebrities. He just thinks they're ordinary people. I don't think so. Anyway, he ended up with the book. I said, I'll take anything for quiet life. Take the book, please. I'll live without it. Cinnamon and orange hot chocolate. Oh, that's it. We're going to go for that one as well. Skimmed milk. Oh, you can't have it. It's got milk in it. Oh, dear me. Carrot cake snack bites. Ain't that quite nice? All from the Daily Mail. Because it's medicine and food days. As if you seriously think I'm going to be doing any cooking anytime soon. Paul Hudderbrook revealing he's softening his style. I don't think he needs to. What we'll do though, we'll take the news headlines, and after that we'll have a chat to LBC's correspondent Richard Venables, maybe about, I think, Boris and yesterday and where we're going. His speech seemed to suggest we're not out of the woods just yet, because we don't want to make that mistake, do we? We don't want a second spike. And then we'll talk to our aviation analyst, Alex Macheras, about Airbus announcing they're furloughing a large number of staff, which means that's about 4 airlines that I know of at the moment who are furloughing thousands of people. All of that coming up after the news. The LBC News brought to you this morning by Thomas Watts. The Prime Minister will lead a minute's silence this morning to remember frontline workers who've died with COVID-19. More than 90 NHS and social care workers have lost their lives during the pandemic. NHS hospitals in England are restarting some vital services, including cancer care and mental health support. The government says individual health trusts will decide how to restore services depending on the number of coronavirus patients they're treating. President Trump has renewed his criticism of China's handling of the early stages of the outbreak in Wuhan. He's promised an inquiry into Beijing's reporting of the virus and has suggested the US will seek damages. And the weather, cloudy across much of England and Wales with heavy rain in places, brighter in Scotland and in Northern Ireland, a high of 11 degrees Celsius.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. He's responsible for the nation's health and well-being. He's part of the government team fighting coronavirus. He's had the disease. He's Matt Hancock, and he's here taking your calls with me, Nick Ferrari, this morning. Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Zero, get your business digital ready with Zero accounting software.
LBC, leading Britain's conversation. Sheila Fogarty.
Just when you thought Donald Trump couldn't alarm you any more than he already had in various ways, he suggested that he'd like to see the proper medical doctors take a look at injecting people with disinfectant. Yeah, the President of the United States said that. By the way, please don't drink disinfectant. It's extremely dangerous.
Sheila Fogarty, Monday to Friday from 1 p.m. LBC.
If you've been waiting for an ear, nose or throat appointment, the current situation can mean you're forced to longer. Here's a connection message. The High Street ENT Clinic is one of the few private clinics in London that remains open, offering expert consultations in person with protective measures in place, or by video call if you prefer to stay at home. Find out more at harleystreetent.com. harleystreetent.com.
Hey, Harry,
Hello, mate.
should I take boosted odds on the big lad to school first, or risk a cheeky bet on the new boy?
Listen, back in the day, people were always offering me deals on players. But sometimes, despite the fans screaming for me to sign them, and the chairman having the cash, if I wasn't sure, then it wasn't worth the gamble. Sometimes your best bet is not to take the bet at all. I've got to run, pal. The dog's just peed in my slippers.
Harry, listen to Harry, and please gamble responsibly. 18 plus with gambleaware.org.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Steve Allen.
Morning, everybody. Nice to have your company. 27 minutes to 7 is the time. It's a Tuesday, it's the 28th of April. Joining us now is LBC's correspondent Rachel Venables. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
So, Boris is back, which is good news. His speech seemed to suggest that we're not out of the woods just yet.
Yes, Boris Johnson is back. He arrived actually at number 10, we're told, on Sunday evening, and a real relief when you consider, of course, just how desperately ill this man was only a few weeks ago, spending 3 nights in an ICU. Some have raised concerns he might be pushing it too soon. This virus apparently can just be horrifically exhausting, really knocks you back for quite a while afterwards. But he was obviously very keen yesterday to show the world that he was ready for the job with that speech first thing. He addressed the cameras and the nation. He described the virus as a mugger, saying this was the moment we've begun to wrestle it to the floor. So obviously he's back to the usual with those incredible descriptions and speech and flourishes. He also said this was the moment, though, on a serious matter of maximum risk in terms of the public, or the concerns really that the public is starting to get a little bit fed up with the lockdown, and there is mounting pressure even within his own party from some to begin to start lifting the lockdown. He also promised transparency over future decisions on things like social distancing, and he also promised to involve businesses and opposition parties when deciding a way forward. He also yesterday chaired the regular morning cabinet meeting on COVID-19 before holding talks with senior ministers and officials. And really the two main jobs that he has to try and grapple with now, the most urgent tasks, are the twin issues of testing, I think, and also the lockdown. So remember, on testing, the government's 100,000 tests a day target. That's up in 3 days. Just 37,000 tests were carried out on Sunday. And as for the lockdown, I've already mentioned, the real fear is that the political consensus and the public support is beginning to fray. Many want to start to move on, but he really was determined to mark his return to number 10 by managing the expectations. Boris Johnson saying, really, under no uncertain terms, we will not lift this until we're sure. He is very concerned. It's the personal implications here as well. He knows how bad this virus could be, and he cited the real risk of the lockdown being lifted too soon and causing a real second deadlier spike in cases and deaths.
Which is what we don't want, absolutely. I mean, I understand he has to be cautious. I also understand, I don't know whether you've noticed, but I see loads of cars coming into town at the moment. I mean, before there was nothing at all. Now people have got brave and they've started bringing the cars in. Perhaps it's a little too soon to be opening everything up, so I understand why he's being slightly reticent. Meanwhile, over the pond, Donald Trump in hot water of his ridiculous, where did this man get his brain from? These disinfectant comments.
It's hard to know where to start with this one. I mean, obviously you'll remember last week during a press conference, the president said that disinfectant and ultraviolet light inside the body could both be potential solutions to the coronavirus crisis. I have to say two things which are categorically untrue and so very dangerous. Disinfectants are hazardous substances. They are actually poisonous if injected. And you had companies that produce disinfectant actually feeling the need to remind people to please not inject or ingest these products. Now, on Friday, the president rode back slightly to this sort of worldwide outrage, saying that he was only being sarcastic, but that didn't stop. Apparently, some people in America going to their authorities and asking whether they should be trying it. You had the Maryland Emergency Management Agency, for example. They said they got more than 100 calls to their hotline, and they had to go onto Twitter saying, this is a reminder, under no uncertain circumstances should any disinfectant product be administered into the body. So then yesterday, Donald Trump was asked about those comments during a press conference in the Rose Garden. He replied, I can't imagine why, yeah. And then when he was asked if he felt any responsibility, he said, no, I don't know, I can't imagine that. So clearly the president not accepting any sense of responsibility there. As I mentioned, he claimed that these comments were sarcastic. These briefings themselves, just these press briefings, they have been headline making. There's been some incredible rambling performances from the president at times going on for hours. Some, I think, of his White House certainly team are very concerned that in the future he should really stick to reopening the economy, issues like that, rather than his theories on what might halt the virus. But it comes, of course, as the virus is known to have killed more than 56,000 people in the US, with more than 1 million confirmed cases. They have around a third of the world's total. So America really buckling under this
stupid, dangerous idea I've ever heard of. And some people will then question it, going, oh right, that's all right, is it? That's why you have to keep saying every time we mention these comments that, you know, you mustn't touch disinfectant in any way, shape or form. The bleaches, the Dettol, any of these things, they're dangerous. Do not even think about it.
Absolutely, it is a poison, and that's what's so shocking about his comments when he describes them as being sarcastic. And that's okay to be sarcastic. You could argue to people who understand the context, but there are a lot of people out there who wouldn't understand and who, you know, are getting in touch, are confused. Who do I listen to? He's the president of the United States. He says these comments surrounded by some of the country's best experts in their respective fields when it comes to tackling this. You know, he has that podium, and people are obviously, even though they are hearing the messages from, you know, journalists and the like and experts, the manufacturers of these products saying absolutely under no circumstances should you be ingesting this. That is horrifically dangerous. They are still coming forward and asking questions, and of course the fear is that a misplaced comment like that could actually do a lot of damage in someone who isn't really following things, isn't really clued up, and actually decides to try it, which absolutely people should not do.
Yes, please do not. But as you say, they're going, well, if the president says it's okay, you know, it's ridiculous. But I'm just horrified that we have to keep telling people that. But, you know, there might be people listening who think, well, if he says it, perhaps he's actually got the right idea. He hasn't, okay? It was done as some sort of sick joke, really, which kind of sums up Mr. Trump. A little later on, though, Rachel, we're going to be commemorating the key workers who've died with coronavirus. How and when?
So that's at 11 o'clock this morning. There's going to be a minute's silence held to remember key workers who died during this coronavirus pandemic. Now, it follows a campaign by the Royal College of Midwives, the Royal College of Nursing, and the union Unison. It's had the backing of the government and the Prime Minister. We're told Boris Johnson will be taking part. We know that 82 NHS workers and 16 social care staff have died so far during this crisis in the UK. The real number, sadly, is still expected to be higher. Other key workers such as bus drivers as well, also among those who have died while carrying out their vital work. So Transport for London say the underground and bus network will be brought to a halt for this silence as the workforce honours its colleagues later. Doctors, nurses, paramedics and healthcare workers, where they can, they're also expected to pay their respects. Workers, wherever they are being encouraged to take part, and will be observing the minute silence here on LBC as well.
That's because I got it wrong before, because I thought it was another lot of clapping for people. And they said, no, it's definitely not clapping, Steve.
Yeah, very, very different. But the two sides of that coin, I think, are so important. Both the celebration of those doctors and nurses and key workers who are going to work every day, of course, as we do on a Thursday evening. But also it's so important to take a moment to be sombre, to be reflective, and to pay respect to those people who have devastatingly lost their lives. I mentioned the numbers. It is thought to be even higher. And you've seen these faces in the papers and on the news of workers who continued going to work and who were struck down by the virus and sadly lost their lives. It's just devastating. It actually comes as well as the Health Secretary yesterday announced a fund for the families of those NHS and social care workers who have died after contracting coronavirus in the course of their duties. They'll be entitled to a £60,000 payment. And Matt Hancock said it's like a life assurance scheme. Obviously, he accepted that nothing replaces the loss of a loved one, but I think the hope is that it goes a little bit further to supporting their families at what is just the most unbelievably difficult time.
Yes, well, you could already take a large chunk out of that for funeral costs and everything else. And so I suppose it could be different depending on the age of the person, the people they're leaving behind. But we do tend to be a little bit dismissive when we say, oh, 300-400 people died. And as I said earlier on this morning, that's 300-400 families who are now dealing with something they've never dealt with before. They had no power over it. They had no control over it. They weren't even allowed to say goodbye at the end. That's why £60,000, as far as I'm concerned, is a mere drop in the ocean.
It is, and I think that the Health Secretary acknowledged that yesterday. But again, for some families who maybe the person who died is the sole breadwinner, for example, they would be really struggling. So obviously the Health Secretary has seen a need there to support, and it is also seen in many ways almost as a cultural shift that we are respecting the work of NHS workers and care workers so much more than I think it's fair to say many people ever did before. But you are quite right again that nothing compares to the loss of a loved one, then it is very difficult when we talk about numbers. I've talked about more than 100 NHS workers and care workers. It is very easy to just talk about the numbers and to lose sight of the fact that each number is an individual and each number represents a family who, as you say, have been utterly bereft. And it's harder as the numbers get higher. The total number of deaths, more than 21,000 in hospital, for example. It's hard to grasp the human impact of all of that.
It is. Nice to talk to you again, and hopefully we'll talk again very soon. That's LBC's correspondent, Rachel Venables. Viv says, Steve, I left BA last year taking voluntary redundancy after being a trolley dolly for 31 happy years. Before lockdown, I worked in my partner's newsagent shop, sorting the cards and sweets out. Loved it. Stood at the door, thanked people for shopping with us. Just took my people skills to a higher level. Can't wait to get back to my new job after this hopefully ends. You can take the girl out of the job, but you can't take the job out of the girl. I'm going to see if I can get a job now. Produce picking here in Suffolk. All the best to you at LBC. You make my day. Thank you. We like to think we make a lot of people's days. Another one here, which says there is also somebody says can the residents in care homes now be tested for the virus? Yes, they can. I mean, to be honest with you, this is one of the questions that you're going to be asking Matt when he comes on to talk to Nick Ferrari this morning, which is, why have we not hit the targets? I mean, do we have enough things, that we can get people tested? That would be something that we need to worry about and get sorted out. But if anybody can get the answers, it'll be Nick Ferrari this morning. 6:45 is the time. Let's have the LBC News with Thomas Watts.
A silence will be observed this morning to remember key workers who've died with coronavirus. President Trump says the US is carrying out serious investigations into Beijing's handling of the pandemic. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, will be taking your calls on Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC this morning from 8. Bright across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but cloudy elsewhere, a high of 11 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. Quite a few problems on the motorways. Firstly, on the Surrey stretch of the M25 clockwise, traffic's being held at junction 9 at Leatherhead because of an accident. And then past that clockwise at junction 11 at Chertsey, one lane's being closed because of a separate accident. On the M4 in Berkshire, eastbound, just before junction 11 at the Basingstoke Road exit, there's been an accident and one lane is closed. In Essex, there are queues on the A12 southbound to junction 13 at Ingeston. That's because of an accident. And in London, there are delays on Whitechapel High Street in both directions, also following an accident.
This is LBC.
If you want a career in media, your future starts here. The Global Academy, a unique school recruiting students for Year 10 and Year 12 who want to work in broadcast and digital media.
There's nowhere that really can offer what the Global Academy offers.
We're all here to do the same thing. We're all interested in media, whatever it is you want to do.
The Global Academy, rated good by Ofsted. Get more info and apply now for September 2020. Search Global Academy.
This is LBC.
With the world in lockdown, your business is learning to adjust. Well, if only your team's laptops would adjust to remote working. That's where 360 ICT can help. We'll take care of all your team's IT infrastructure, install everything remotely, and offer 24/7 support via chat, so you can get on with your business. Talk to 360 ICT and ask about our half-price support agreements. Search 360 ICT now. T's and C's apply.
We all put it off. You know those days you're supposed to be doing live admin, running errands, tackling that backlog of washing for the past couple of weeks? Switching energy supplier is so easy, it won't even make your to-do list. Sign up to Bounce and we'll automatically switch you onto the best deal from one of our carefully selected suppliers. So that's one less thing to worry about. Bounce onto a better deal today and go to switchwithbounce.com.
leading Britain's conversation. Steve Allen on LBC. Text 84850.
Morning, everybody. 12 minutes to 7 is the time. Well, we've heard about British Airways, we've heard about Virgin. Now, last night, Airbus have announced that they're furloughing a large number of staff. What hope for the future? Let's have a talk to our aviation analyst, Alex Macheras. Alex, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
I mean, this is, what, 3,200 staff? It's a lot of people.
Exactly, it is. And this is just one side of Airbus, who, of course, have got a great presence across Europe and, in fact, the world. But this does primarily concern their UK staff, and particularly at the site where they manufacture the wings for Airbus jets. But Airbus are not alone here in facing this crisis. The entire aviation industry is in an unprecedented situation. Airlines are literally battling for survival, and if they are not going to receive government help in the form of commercial loans, for example, then we shouldn't expect to see them on the other side of this.
Because people are now saying that there is now, you know, that was very positive for Airbus. Now it's very negative. There's simply no demand for new aircraft at the moment.
Exactly, and Airbus were all the time ramping up and pumping out all of these new airline jets right up until the beginning of this pandemic, and now either their airline customers are in no fit state to be able to take new jets during this period, but certainly no fit state to take new jets following this period. And with airlines queuing up to say, okay, we're cancelling our orders, that puts a manufacturer like Airbus in a hugely difficult situation. It puts a lot of pressure on their supply chain, which is used to trying to meet demand. Now it's got overcapacity, essentially. And we're seeing this replicated across the airline and aviation world.
Yes, a friend of mine works for BA, and he's been furloughed as well. He said there are thousands of people. Virgin have started announcing. It's interesting that Airbus, they furloughed 3,200 staff, but they employ 135,000 people. So it really is, it'll take years to recover from this.
It will, exactly. And at the moment, we are in this initial period where we are lucky that the UK's job retention scheme is there, and so, you know, people are being paid. The real worry is for the future, and it's for we know that the aviation world will be a smaller place, and therefore companies like Airbus will be scaling down, and that's not going to be good news for employment on a longer term scale. We really still are in this initial immediate aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis on an economic side, and sadly I think the worst is yet to come, at least for the aviation industry, in terms of the long-term impacts.
I think you're right. I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, isn't it amazing? 3 months ago, we were all happily sailing through the world, and all of a sudden this bombshell comes down, and we start now seeing the after effects. I agree with you. You're the analyst, but you're looking ahead, and you're going, the worst is yet to come.
Exactly, and we're seeing this even on a level, for example, I've had so many LBC listeners complain that they're struggling to get refunds, for example, from airlines who have cancelled their bookings. But the reality is, if every airline was going to process all of the refunds necessary in the time frame they're expected to do it, which is in around 14 days, these airlines will be out of business within weeks, and they will not be there on the other side of this when we expect them to be there to be able to fly away again and visit new territories when it's safe to do so. So it's a catch-22 situation. We want them to survive, but also it shouldn't be up to the passengers to prop them up with their hard-earned cash.
Holding your crystal ball, Alex, in one hand, do you think, we've already seen, was it Virgin Australia that went under? Do you see other airlines going under?
Absolutely, sadly, and this is because ultimately the airlines that are not going to be able to receive government help will probably